The Green Bay Packers had a chance to hire Christian Parker and didn't do it. Now he's the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. I think this tells us where the Packers want to go and what candidate they want to hire.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on social medias. Follow the podcast wherever you get podcasts. iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel officially in playoff mode every game during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers even more way to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Why haven't we heard about any staff changes with the Green Bay Packers on offense or defense? I have a theory about that. The coaching carousel is proving right now what a good decision it was to keep Matt LaFleur. But speaking of coaching decisions, the Green Bay Packers will not be hiring Christian Parker to be their defensive coordinator because the Dallas Cowboys will be doing it. If the Packers had really wanted Christian Parker to be their defensive coordinator, they could have just hired him when they interviewed him. And they did not. And so one of two things is true. Either they miscalculated how interested other teams would be in him. I don't think that's likely because the last time they interviewed him, before Jeff Hafley was hired, they really liked him. That is what I had heard, that they thought he was really impressive. He was just too young. Now you get some experience. Clearly, another team thought he was good enough to get this shot, and everything you hear about him is that this is a stud defensive coach. They get Al Harris in the building, Durante Jones in the building. Jonathan Gannon was in yesterday and is now in today. And I have the solution. I have a theory that I think is really plausible about what's going on here. It's not that they were not interested in Christian Parker or Al Harris or Durante Jones or Jonathan Gannon for that matter. It's that I don't think they have interviewed the coach they would really like to hire. And that's because the coach that they would really like to hire can't be interviewed until next week. I think this points us even stronger toward a Jim Leonhard defensive coordinator job in Green Bay. He was the guy Matt LaFleur wanted to call his defense back when they hired Joe Barry. And for a slew of reasons that I'm sure you've heard of by now, Jim Leonhard withdrew himself from consideration. Now, there is competing reporting about whether the job was actually offered or if the Packers just wanted to offer it, or you know, the gray areas that are all around those scenarios potentially, right? There's a lot of different things that could have happened that it is irrelevant because he ultimately took himself out of the running for the job. Now, we've got multiple Packers beat writers who have said, I think they want to interview Jim Leonhard. I think there's no bad blood between Matt LaFleur and Jim Leonhard. That tells us that if they're, beefing up the sourcing around this, if those attitudes are out there, the most likely thing is that those attitudes are out there because agents are talking, or at the very least, people are talking, and they believe that the Packers would have interest in Jim Leonhard. Well, one of the best candidates for your head coach, your defensive coordinator job, was just hired because you didn't hire him, and you did have theoretically the chance to do that. Now you have this Jonathan Gannon 2-day interview. Is it just going to be his job then? I don't think so. Now, that doesn't mean he won't ultimately be the coach. I do think he's got a very good chance. But the reason I think he has a very good chance is because they haven't had a chance to actually talk to the candidate Matt LaFleur has the most interest in. And that is Jim Leonhard. And they cannot talk to him until next week. The Broncos play on Sunday. If you want Jim Leonhard to be the defensive coordinator, you want them to lose because he can't be hired until after the Broncos are done playing. So if they go to the Super Bowl, the Packers cannot hire him until after that. So here's where I think they stand. If they could get a shot at Raheem Morris, if they thought they could get Raheem Morris, they would hire Raheem Morris. Like if they could get him, if you wanted to pick Green Bay over, say, San Francisco, or if Chris Shula gets one of these other coaching jobs, the Miami job is Jeff Hafley's, the Baltimore job is Jesse Minter's. Chris Shula, all of a sudden, like maybe getting boxed out. Could he be the Raiders? The Browns? You're kind of running out of rope here. We're going to talk about that part of this in a second. You need to make a decision. So you need to have Jonathan Gannon in your back pocket. And I think that's what this is. You have a first interview with him. It's already like, hey, let's talk again tomorrow. Let's continue this dialogue. What are you thinking? What do you want? Because even if Jim Leonhard is your preferred candidate and he signs, maybe you want someone like Jonathan Gannon. Hey, come be a senior assistant here, work, rehab your image around the league for a year. Let's go chase a Super Bowl. And then you might get another shot at this. Come work for an organization like Green Bay. That could be the theory. Now, would he, feel slighted not getting the DC job? Maybe. But let's say Rich Bisaccia is going to retire. He could be the assistant head coach, have that title, be the DB's coach and assistant head coach. That would not feel like such a big deal to miss out on the DC job. Probably get paid pretty well. And he's getting his contract in Arizona. So like the payment part is actually not that big a deal. I personally would be a bigger fan of Jonathan Gannon, I think, than most Packer fans I see on Twitter anyway. But I don't think the Packers are going to hire anyone without speaking to Jim Leonhard. And that leads me to believe that if that's true, and I think that's true, then that's the guy they want to hire. Or at the very least, they want him to say thanks, but no thanks. Or at the very least, they want to see, okay, is that spark still there? Is that worth exploring? It's kind of like, you get into a relationship with someone, but there was that person that you had so many can't just miss. You just kissed, you just barely didn't kiss at this one moment. And the timing just wasn't right over here. They were dating someone but you felt like, I know there's something there. Maybe that's the Packers with Jim Leonhard. And you just want to see, before you jump into a new relationship, you get out of this other relationship, the one that, you were not able to pursue that old spark, but now maybe you are. And maybe it's not there anymore. Maybe that thing that attracted you to them so much and them to you is gone. People change over the years. In the NFL, the league changes, the game changes. Coaches change. And I don't mean like literally you change the coach. I mean the coach himself changes. But if they're waiting, that tells us everything we need to know about what they think about him as a candidate. And it would not be that hard for Matt LaFleur, understanding the rules are the rules. All these guys have agents. You back channel with the agent. Hey, do you think Jim Leonhard would be interested in the Packers defensive coordinator job if he were offered that position? Yeah. Okay, we'll wait. Let us be the first interview he does. You want to come, Coach Micah Parsons, you want to come back to Wisconsin? We be the conquering hero in Green Bay. No one around the league is going to have a better case to make that their defensive coordinator job, their open defensive coordinator job, is better than the Packers. No one. And by the way, the Packers could put together a pretty all-star staff with some of the coaches who might be available. Would Zach Orr, who was, almost in the Packers building before he got promoted, Packers could use a linebackers coach if Sean Duggan is going to go with Jeff Hafley. Bobby Babich was going to be a finalist for the Packers DC job before he got promoted in Buffalo. He's got experience as a position coach too. Have him come be your probably not your run game coordinator, maybe your passing game coordinator. And you have to move some pieces around, but you can do that. If you're going to bring a new DC, everything's on the table. There's some exciting options out here. I just think they've circled the one guy that they wanted to hire last time who got away. All right, let's talk about why we haven't heard anything about staff changes for the Green Bay Packers. We'll do that next. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if TurboTax didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. The group chat was on fire yesterday. We have fun. It's a lot of fun to be a part of the Everydayer Club and our group chat on the Discord, talking about Al Harris, talking about Christian Parker, talking about what comes next. If you want to be a part of it, you got to be an Everydayer Club member. LockedOnPackers.supercast.com gets you ad-free access to the podcast as well. Come hang out. There is a concern from Packers fans that the Packers are just going to run this all back. That we haven't heard anything about Rich Bisaccia. We haven't heard anything about Adam Stenavich or Luke Butkus. And that's got some people on edge, feeling like this is all just going to be one internal promotion after another. It is interesting that we haven't heard DeMarcus Covington or Derek Ainsley as internal candidates for this job. And I wonder if those guys are headed to Miami with Jeff Hafley. But that's the big difference here. There is so much on the table in terms of turnover that has nothing to do with what the Packers want to do. Multiple players or coaches on the Packers staff have been reported as candidates for Jeff Hafley's staff. Adam Stenavich, Jason Vrabel on the offensive side. On the defensive side, Sean Duggan has apparently been in the conversation to be the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins. Now, Jeff Hafley's still going to call the plays, but that's an opportunity for your staff to have to backfill there. Well, you don't know who Jeff Hafley is taking yet, or at least we don't. You might, if you're at 1265. Presumably, Jeff Hafley saying, "Hey, I'd really like to do this. I'd really like to do this." They can't stop Adam Stenavich from interviewing for an offensive coordinator position in which he calls plays. Now, and then a bona fide upgrade in terms of your position. Like, they could just let Sean Duggan go. But being a defensive coordinator, you generally don't block those kinds of things. Theoretically, you could. Now, the Miami Dolphins are not the only team that could be interested in Packers staff members. Robert Saleh got the job in Tennessee. And he was someone that, I think there were some Packer fans out there who thought, hey, if you could get Robert Saleh and an awesome OC, maybe you consider moving on from Matt LaFleur. I said, Robert Saleh and Mike McDaniel together, that would be very intriguing to me. That would just never happen because I don't think those guys would shiv their friend like that. It would only work if, say, Matt was being stonewalled with contracts and was like, just trade me to Atlanta. Just trade me to Atlanta. They're going to pay me all the money. Just trade me. Get your pick. Trade me. And then it's like, okay, well, you decided you wanted out, and now your friends can come in. So you don't have to fire anybody. Like, I know that the reason Packer fans are annoyed is they want Adam Stenavich replaced. They want Luke Butkus replaced. Well, you might not have to do anything. Rich Bisaccia might retire. He's 65. How long are you going to coach? Now, I personally don't think at this moment, if you ask me, I don't know, you don't need to, put me on a lie detector. I'm right here telling you. I just don't think they're going to fire Rich Bisaccia. I think if they were going to, they would have. So that might not be your favorite thing. But I find it very hard to believe in this coaching cycle in particular, with all of the openings out there, all of the changes, 10 teams are going to change head coaches, that there would be no one from the Packers staff that anyone would want. And what an indictment that would be of the Packers staff. An elite offense every year in the Matt LaFleur era, and no one wants any of their coaches? Wouldn't that, if you're the Packers, wouldn't you say, well, maybe we should fire some of these people just for that? Like, if no one wants our guys, maybe they're not very good, and maybe you need to find some upgrades. And that's where some Packer fans are going, hey, you need, and I have said, they need someone in that building from an offensive standpoint that can be a true peer to Matt LaFleur, or at least he can feel like, hey, we've got that rapport. And maybe that's Luke Getsy, maybe that's Nathaniel Hackett. To me, I would want someone with some new ideas, someone from outside the building, maybe even someone from outside the tree to come in and offer something. That's why I thought it was so funny when I would hear fans say, oh, I want Clint Kubiak to replace Matt LaFleur. What? Clint Kubiak runs the same offense as Matt LaFleur and has less experience doing it. Like, what are we talking about here? I don't want to preempt our last segment, but like, there's still a lot to be decided about what this Packers coaching staff is going to look like even before the Packers decide. And so I think that's part of what is, if you want to call it a holdup, I don't. Like, we're a week removed from all of this. Jeff Hafley just got this job. We're going to know in the next couple of days, okay, he wants to bring these players. The Packers have to decide, okay, we can kick up this guy. Sean Mannion is another example of someone that Robert Saleh could have interest in, that Jeff Hafley could have interest in, that any coaching staff could have interest in. So this is something we're going to have to keep our eye on. I think change is coming on both sides of the ball for the Packers in real ways. I think there's almost no chance Jeff Hafley brings no one from Green Bay. Like, that would be wild if he brought no one from Green Bay. At the very least, he's going to bring Vince Ogabasi, his assistant defensive line coach, probably to be his defensive line coach in Miami. Like, I would be shocked if that doesn't happen. So there's going to be a natural evolution of this coaching staff, and I think that's good for this staff. They need a little bit of a shakeup. That you can't just do the promote from within thing every year. And I think there's going to be guys taken with big enough roles that you're not going to be able to just promote from within without backfilling with real talent. Like, if you move Sean Mannion up, let's say, to offensive coordinator, which I think would be a pretty vertiginous rise for him. Well, now you need a QB's coach. That's a really important position. You have to find real talent to do that. So I think it's going to require, and obviously the defensive coordinator, you need real talent. They're going to want to bring some of their guys here. They're not just going to say, oh yeah, it's fine that I'll just take all of Jeff Hafley's old guys. Jeff Hafley's, first of all, is going to take some guys with him, and you're going to have to backfill that. So that's a new staff. That's a new version of this Green Bay Packers team, and I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait to see what it is. Now, much like the conversation we had yesterday at the start of the show about how you don't want owners, this coaching cycle is proof. As a Packers fan, you don't want to be out here in these head coaching streets. You do not want to be out here looking for a new head coach. You just don't. The NFL playoffs are now winding down, and there's nothing like being at the game, especially for these big games. The crowd noise, the energy, the cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium, it hits different. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right after checkout. That's why the Game Time app gives you the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. The app is intuitive for browsing, comparing, and buying tickets. It takes just a few minutes. One of my favorite features is being able to see my view from the seat before I buy, because if it's an arena I've never been to, I got to know what I'm getting. I like that the fees are included up front, so the price you see is exactly the price you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, and FanDuel's in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like the most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boost make your bets feel that way too. So visit FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL game day. I don't know how you can look around the coaching carousel and think, God, I can't believe the Packers didn't fire Matt LaFleur. Now, some of you wanted John Harbaugh. I get that. I mean, I don't get that, but I understand that part of it. And had the Packers job been open, he would have jumped at that opportunity. I think Adam Schefter openly campaigning for John Harbaugh to get the Packers job tells us that. But even if I take the John Harbaugh-ness aside, look at the guys getting these jobs. Like I said, Saleh and Mike McDaniel would be really intriguing. But you don't get Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel's going to LA. Now, maybe if it's in Green Bay, you could have convinced him to do that. I kind of think he would rather been in LA because it's LA. And it's Justin Herbert. Not that Jordan Love is an appealing package, but it's LA. And you don't have the baggage of the LaFleur stuff. You want Kevin Stefanski? I don't think Kevin Stefanski is an upgrade over Matt LaFleur. At what? Like, I would have understood it if they had fired Matt LaFleur, hired Kevin Stefanski, especially if he gets some rock star defensive coordinator and you sell me on the idea that they're going to modernize the offense, they're going to modernize decision-making in terms of how often you're passing, how often you're going for it on fourth down, those kinds of things. But I am in no way convinced that they are in a better position with Kevin Stefanski. Look at the Ravens. Now, they just hired Jesse Minter, who I think is a really good young coach. We have absolutely no idea if he can be a head coach. And the Ravens are at an inflection point in their run with Lamar Jackson, who is approaching 30 and has now had injuries become a major part of the narrative of his career, his entire career. How is his game going to age as he gets older, as he gets more susceptible to injury, which is just a thing that happens to everybody as they get older, unless you're Tom Brady and you're eating avocado ice cream every day. Who is he bringing as his offensive coordinator? I'm not saying Jesse Minter would not have been an interesting hire in Green Bay, but it introduces a lot more risk. You have a 3-year window right now. That was year 1. You've got 2 more years to figure it out. And you want to midstream break that? Now, the Ravens are not as all in as the Packers, not having given up multiple first-round picks for Micah Parsons, all those things, though the Ravens, man, they sure could have used Micah Parsons this year. But they have an expensive team, an aging team now. Derrick Henry getting older, Marlon Humphrey getting older, Ronnie Stanley getting older, Tyler Linderbaum hitting free agency. They've got some questions to answer as they move forward. Yes, they have Lamar Jackson, but that hasn't been good enough before. So it's going to be good enough now with Jesse Minter? Maybe or maybe not. Look at the Bills. It looks like they're going to bring back Brian Daboll, who failed spectacularly in New York, got in a pissing match with his defensive coordinator to the point that his defensive coordinator said, I'm out of here. One of the all-time, like one of the best defensive coordinators of his generation, Wink Martindale. And so this is just going to fix it because he's buddies with Josh Allen? That's what you want to do? That's the big fix in Buffalo after decades and decades and decades of losing and coming up short and losing games in the postseason you should have won? That's the fix? Brian Daboll? Come on. And this is the whole point. This is the Del Curry. Why are you breaking up in your 50s and your 60s? You don't want to be out on these streets. And that was more about who he was, the wife that he was leaving and all these things. But like, you don't want to be out on these head coaching streets. You were not going to find someone better than Matt LaFleur. And I know some people say, well, that's not my job. I just think, I don't have to find someone new. I don't have to find someone new. Well, yes, you do. It's literally your job. If you're the owner and you want to fire the coach, it is then your job to find someone new. Now, as a fan, you can say, I don't want Matt LaFleur to be the coach anymore. But then that raises the question, necessarily, who would be better? Clint Kubiak was the sexy name I heard from Packers fans. It has been crickets for Clint Kubiak. No, I understand you got to wait because he's still going. But guess what? No one waited. If he's such a good candidate, people waited for Kellen Moore. The Saints waited for Kellen Moore until after the Super Bowl. The Cardinals waited for Jonathan Gannon. Well, okay, the Cardinals didn't actually wait for Jonathan Gannon, and they got fined for it. But they wanted him so badly, they didn't wait. But they had to wait. They waited to actually hire him. If he were that good a candidate, that appealing a candidate, why don't the Steelers want to hire him? Why didn't the Ravens want to hire him? Why don't the Bills want to hire him? Those are Tony jobs. Those are blue blood NFL franchises. And they were just like, nah, man, we're good. It sounds like right now the leader in the clubhouse in Pittsburgh is freaking Mike McCarthy. Matt LaFleur replaced Mike McCarthy. So what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Look, I understood the frustration. I shared the frustration with the coming up short in these moments. Matt LaFleur is a really good head coach, and he's better than anyone you would have brought in. I'm telling you that right now. But better than anyone you would have brought in, could have reasonably thought you could bring in. And by the way, Matt LaFleur with Jim Leonard could be a rock star combination. Yeah, he could be a head coach in 2 or 3 years. Cool. That means that your defense kicked ass for 2 or 3 years. And you probably won a Super Bowl. That's worth it. That's worth it. Back next week as we hope to get some clarity around what's going on with this defensive coordinator job, though. Look, I kind of think we cracked it here on the show today. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Follow me on the social medias, of course. And subscribe. We had the Squad Show. So that's on your YouTube feed. That's in your feed if you're a Locked On Packers subscriber. But if you're wanting to get the ad-free version of Locked On Packers, you need to be an Everyday Club member for that. Go to lockedonpackers.supercast.com to get that. And always stay Locked On Packers.